One thing we see leading up to 1918, the mood of the combatants is really low. People aren't enjoying this. By the end of 1916, with Germany alone, over 1 million soldiers had been killed. In Germany, the female mortality increased by 11.5%. Mortality, what we mean is people dying. 1916, female mortality was up to 30.4%. A lot of this was attributable to disease and malnutrition. Germany did not have unlimited supplies to keep their people fed and or happy. That U-boat campaign of unrestricted warfare also affected Germany. During 1917, the consumption of fish and eggs was halved. So was that of sugar, potatoes, butter, and vegetables. That all declined steeply in what you had. Luxuries like coffee, things we really take for granted, this all but disappeared on the tables, except for people who were rich. Necessities like soap and fuel, these were strictly rationed. So people in the entire country, not just at the front lines, were feeling the impacts of this. In Vienna, so in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, real wages had halved in 1916 and would again in 1970. So 60% of men of breadwinning age were at the front lines. Families are dependent on a state allowance. By the end of the war, they're only buying 2 loaves of bread a day. You can imagine the impact this would have on people. So Germany makes a huge offensive trying to push for the defeat of the French and British before those American troops are arriving. This was called the Spring Offensive in 1918. Years of stalemate see the German troops move to within 120 kilometers of Paris. They advance 60 kilometers. They use these massive guns that were on trains firing on the capital, causing Parisians to flee. The problem is the further you progress, the farther you are from your supplies. So even gaining ground creates difficulties. You also see with the 100 Days Offensive, famous battles like the Battle of Amiens, over 400 tanks were used. So Germans are losing food and oil supplies. America is pumping so much in that there was no shortage for the Allies at this point. And so August of 1918, Germans are now pushed back deep into their own country. The German Reichstag, or their government, they want to make peace with the Allies now. So on November 11th, 1918, an armistice was agreed upon. Here's some key surrender dates of World War I. The Ottomans surrendered October 30th, 1918. Austria-Hungary, November 3rd. Germany, November 11th. Now, we're going to look at this in more detail, so we won't spend much time on this. This leads to the Paris Peace Conference. January 19, the winning nations are invited, so Germany is not present. One of the main goals, all ethnic people were to have their own homelands. Not completely successful, but again, we see this self-determination movement really grow, and it's decided, if you are an ethnic nation, you need to have your own homeland. European and Americans were worried about the spread of communism from Russia. If you remember, they just had a revolution. France is extremely fearful of a strong Germany, so the Allies feel that Germany should have to pay financially for the war. This brings us to the Treaty of Versailles, extremely harsh on Germany. They have to accept full responsibility for starting the war. We call this war guilt. Germany loses 13% of their industrial land. This is including they're in the heart of the Rhineland, which is occupied for 15 years by force. They lose all their colonies that they gained overseas. Their army is limited to a maximum of 100,000 men. And Germany and Austria, who shared a language, are not allowed to unite into one nation. We're going to look at all these things in greater detail, but that's the end of the war.